I can't even believe I'm doing this video, but we're gonna be putting Schwarzkopf Blonde Me to the test again on the level 2 swatch. Now in my very first Ultimate Bleach Guide video that I did for all of the best Cosmoprof lighteners, I tested the Schwarzkopf Blonde Me and it quite didn't get the amount of lift that I was expecting because it does claim up to 9, and a lot of you came for me in the comments. There's a lot of Blonde Me lovers out there, both professional and unprofessional people that just did not like the results and how I mixed it and a bunch of other things. So today I'm gonna give it a second chance and we're gonna do all of the mixing ratios under the sun to see if truly there is a difference between the 1:1, 1:2, and the 1 to 2.5, which is what I did in the original video. Now if you didn't watch that video, make sure you click on it right here. Go take a look at it, go see the results for yourself in comparison to all of the other lighteners that claimed 8 to 9 levels. But this is probably gonna be the one and only time that I give a lightener a chance too. So let's see if it meets up to my standards. And if you're new here, my name is Mirella Manelli. I'm a hair educator that loves helping hairstylists simplify their skills and business. And if you like videos like these, make sure you hit that subscribe button, share this video with a friend. Now let's get right into this video. Now there were a lot of people in the comments that were confused about why I mixed up Schwarzkopf Blonde Me at a 1 to 2.5 mixing ratio, and they were also confused by the manufacturer's instructions. So let's go ahead and start there first, exactly how you're supposed to mix this up. Now you can use a 1 to 1.5 to a 1 to 2.5. And usually when a manufacturer states that on their packaging, it's one or the other and not really a variable. Usually if there's like a dash or a comma, it just means these are the two options that you have. For example, I've used Kenra all of my life and they have 3 mixing ratio options, 1 to 2 or 1 to 3. Nothing like in between those. So for Schwarzkopf Blonde Me, it gave me those 2 options. So I just stuck with the latter option to keep it as close to the 1 to 2. But I get it, you guys were really upset that I did not keep it at a 1 to 2 like the rest of the brands, but I'm sorry, that's how the manufacturers had put their instructions on the back of their bottles, and I just wanted to be consistent and fair. And we're gonna mix this up exactly how it states, along with the 1 to 2 just for funsies, to see if it even really would make a difference of that slight little variance of 1 to 2 versus 1 to 2.5, and see if we even get a higher lift. And we're gonna compare the swatches all across the board. And we're gonna be using the same level 2 swatches, again, to keep the test fair. So let's get right into it. So for our first mixing ratio, we're gonna be doing the 1 to 1.5. And I'm gonna go ahead and just put, for funsies, an even 20 in here because I want to be able to see the swell factor as well. That's something I didn't test in the very first video. And a lot of Blonde Me users or people who used to use Blonde Me, they have complained about the swell factor. So it'll be interesting to actually measure it up and see. So since we have 20 grams of our lightener, we're going to do 1 to 1.5. So that's an added 30 grams. So we're going to have a total of 50 grams of our 20 volume dedicated developer. Now, obviously I'm not doing the sniff test or any of that. If you want to see my thoughts on each of the lighteners and how they feel and all of that, definitely go watch the very first video. And just by the way, this does smell really strong, so that definitely has not changed. But let's go ahead and get this 1 to 1.5 mixing ratio onto the swatch. So I'm going to be using the same exact level 2 swatches. Something else I want to note is that I am using a plastic whisk, so there's no metal on metal. So now let's go ahead and do the brush test. Now overall, the viscosity, it looks really great, but that's not what we're doing this video for. We just want to see the results and see really if 1 to 1.5 really does make a difference. Now overall, Blonde Me is a great lightener. I've never said that it wasn't, but what I will say is that I think it's a great lightener on those who are like level 5 and above. From my experience, I can't quite say that I've had the best amount of lift on darker levels. That just hasn't been my experience, and that's just the honest truth from a hairstylist. Now, to maintain the integrity of this video, I am going to just do a sped up version of the application process of this swatch because a lot of you guys came for me and said that I wasn't applying it correctly and I wasn't saturating enough, and that's why it just did not lift. And I'm going to prove to you that I got all the sides of the swatch and applied enough product. I think the reason why a lot of you guys maybe said that about the swatch is because the clip was edited, because I didn't want to bore you with the long drawn out application of a hair swatch. So now that I have the lightener on and it's thoroughly saturated, we're going to process for 45 minutes because that is what Schwarzkopf said, to leave it and process it up to 45. Now we're gonna mix up the 1:2 mixing ratio. Even though the 1:2 mixing ratio is not listed on the packaging, it does say 1 to 2.5. We already have the results from that swatch, but we're just gonna do the 1 to 2, see if truly there is a huge difference. Oof, this stuff is so strong. And I don't know if it's just because I'm like super sensitive or what. So we got 20 grams inside. Now we're gonna do 2 parts of our developer. So now we're gonna go ahead and mix this up. And keep in mind, I am doing this for all of the Blonde Me lovers out there and all of the people who came in the comments and just gave me so much hate. I just wanna see the results for myself. If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong and I will live up to it. But let's go ahead and get this one on the swatch. Okay, so we got a little thinner viscosity here. It's still kind of like thick. Can't really quite tell a difference, honestly, between the 1 to 1.5, and I remember the 1 to 2.5. They're all pretty similar. Now, I just want to reiterate, because I've mentioned this in a lot of my other videos, but heat source can matter a lot. And even though we're not applying any direct heat, and Schwarzkopf does not recommend any additional heat, but the natural warmth from our bodies can enhance the type of lift that we're getting from our bleach lightener. So I do want to specify that yes, you probably will get a little bit more lift out of your bleach lightener when it's applied to your client's hair, but since this is a controlled setting, and in comparison to a lot of the other lighteners, that's just what we're basing it off of a controlled setting. There's no extra heat source. It's all done under the same circumstances. So then we're really able to see the actual strength from each. So that's exactly why I was just doing this test in the first place. But I'm excited to see these results and actually see for the first time if mixing ratio really does make a huge impact on the type of lift that we get from our lightener. So now we wait 45 minutes for this one to bake. It's been 45 minutes. We're gonna take a look at the 1 to 1.5 mixing ratio first inside of the bowl. Now you can see how much swelling there is. Like, that is insane how much swelling is left from just a little bit of lightener that was left in the bowl. Very puffy for sure. Now, when it comes to the actual foil itself, there's lots of action going on in here. Lots of swelling. So we can definitely feel that. Let's take a look at the swatch. So this actually looks really nice. Not too much orangey undertone that I'm seeing, but there is that blue cast that we see. So sometimes, again, that plays that trick on your eye. Let me go ahead and wipe this clean. Oh my gosh, I can't believe how much swelling there is. So yeah, this does look pretty nice. And so far from what I can see why hairstylists like the 1-to-1. Definitely way more lift than the original swatch, but let's go and wash this out and see. Now it's been 45 minutes for the 1 to 2 mixing ratio. And what we got here in the bowl is a little bit of swelling, not as much as the 1 to 1.5 mixing ratio, but swelling nonetheless. This to me is like a little bit more normal of swelling that I can see here in the bowl. And I think that's what I kind of remember from the first test. We got some swelling, but not as much as this. So the more developer you have inside of your mixing ratio, the less swell factor you have. And from what I've read on the comments, as well as from other hairstylists that love Blonde Me, they love the 1 to 1.5 mixing ratio with 7 volume developer. That's kind of like the golden zone for most people. Now again, we got a little bit of swell factor to be expected with a lot of the blue power lifting lighteners. Not super concerned. This feels slightly on the higher side, but nothing like alarming yet. So let's take a look. And this one looks good too. I do see some like more orangey tones though with this one kind of floating around here. Let's go ahead and wipe this clean off. Yeah, you know, this blue cast, I really don't know. I'm gonna have to wash this out to give you the results. Now that we have both of the swatches washed, shampooed, conditioned, and dried, we're gonna put these side by side. So overall first impressions, very similar to the last video. As we were rinsing this out, there was just kind of like this grainy feel, lots of swelling with both, but a little less with the 1 to 2 mixing ratio. Looking at these swatches side by side, you really can't tell a difference in lift. They actually are pretty similar. And sizing this up next to the original swatch, this is the 1 to 2.5. This one actually is the darkest. So let's go ahead and size these up to the level finder. We'll start out with the 1 to 1.5 here. Now, right off the bat, I know this is definitely not a solid level 8. I'm seeing a lot of orangey tones kind of pulling through. I'm gonna go with a 7.75 of a lift with this. It's like almost an 8. It's like almost there. And this is the strongest mixing ratio that Schwarzkopf recommends. Now again, I'm looking for a lot of lift because this is a lightener that claims to have 9+ levels of lift in that 45-minute processing time. So I just kind of was hoping that I was gonna get at least to that level 8 from the level 2 swatch, especially with all of the raving reviews and all of the hype around Blonde Me, and so many of you guys love this lightener. I'm just kind of like not seeing the power out of this because I know that there's other lighteners out there that can get me a higher lift and end result that I'm trying to achieve with less swelling and even a little better integrity. Now let's go ahead and look at this 1:2 swatch. Now this was the mixing ratio that was not necessarily recommended, but was at a variance per the comment that I got on my channel. So since that comment was there, and it wasn't the only one that I had that was like that, I went ahead and tested it anyways, just to see if truly there was a huge difference between the 1 to 1.5 and the 1 to 2, and then also the 1 to 2.5. So immediately looking at this, again, really similar to the 1 to 1.5, not quite an 8, not quite a 7 through, and ironically, I actually feel like this one's slightly lighter in lift, but not really by much. So for that, I'm also gonna measure this one at a 7.75. It's like almost on that golden zone at a level 8. And with a lightener like Blonde Me that promises 9+ levels of lift, I was really hoping I was gonna get something a little bit more pow out of this one. So now let's go ahead and put all of these swatches side by side, even from the original video, so that way we can see exactly the progression if there is one in lift. Now that I have these sitting side by side, I can really see a difference in that original swatch, the 1 to 2.5 mixing ratio. This one actually does look a lot darker than the original 7.5 that I originally measured it at. And seeing this next to my 7.75s that I've measured these swatches at, you know, I might even go ahead and lower this just a little bit more at a 7.25, but we'll stick with a 7.5 regardless. It still is a little bit darker. And then, you know, seeing the 1.5 to 1.5, I just don't see much of a difference in lift. And now seeing the 1.5 mixing ratio next to the 1 to 2 mixing ratio swatch, there really isn't much of a difference with those. But if I were just to look at the 2 swatches that Schwarzkopf recommended at the 1 to 1.5 to the 1 to 2.5, there's definitely a clear distinction between the two. You can clearly see there's definitely more lift in the 1 to 1.5, which again, I can see why hairstylists who love using Blonde Me love that mixing ratio so much. As I've said before, mixing ratios do matter, and there was a huge difference between the 1 to 1.5 versus the 1 to 2.5. However, I can't say it was that much of an impact that it would have shifted the end results from the first video. I was expecting it to at least give me one full level of lift with the lower mixing ratio. Now this video was created for all of the Schwarzkopf Blonde Me users that wanted to see the different mixing ratios and results, but overall this doesn't change really my overall opinion as far as the lift and what the facts are showing me here and what the results are showing me. I do think that Schwarzkopf Blonde Me is a great general lightener, but it's not the one for me that's going to give me the highest amount of lift, based on the fact that I do work on a lot of clients that have extremely dark hair. But this video is for educational purposes only. Take it with a grain of salt. If you like using Blonde Me, please by all means keep using it. It is a great general lightener like I've mentioned, and if it works for you and it gets you that 9+ levels of lift, definitely keep using it. Now if you're surprised by the results in this video, please let me know down below. If you like videos like these, please make sure you hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, share it with a friend, and like always, you can head on over to MirellaManelli.com where you can get more free education, sign up for my newsletter, listen to my podcast, and a whole bunch more. And to sign up for the waitlist for Airbnb University, you're gonna wanna head on over to airbnbuniversity.com. It's where confidence behind the chair starts right here. Open enrollment starts back up in August, and I would love to see you in class. And until then, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.